Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Crime and Addiction. This is the podcast brought to you by Addiction Training Center. I'm Scott Jones with
Karyn Hurley.
And Karyn and I are very proud to bring this to you. It's about crime and addiction in America, the crisis we face, different things that are going on, and all the peripheral services and responders and everybody else who's involved in trying to make a difference. And in that, we're talking to somebody we're very proud to be talking to today because she's been a good friend of ours for
5 years.
5 years or more. We spent some time together, and she is one of those people that when she says she's going to do something, she's going to do 10 times that. That's just one of the people that she is. It's Michelle Esquenazi, and she is the president and founder of NABA, which is National Association of Bail Agents. And we're just so proud to have her. I'm not going to talk about all the other things you do, Michelle, because we'd be here all day. But you are an entrepreneur, business owner. You just drive and drive and drive.
Well, good morning. I mean, first of all, it's my honor to be with both of you because not only do I consider you colleagues, I consider both of you dear friends. And I thank you for all that you do in the addiction community and to bring attention to these matters. It's just so important. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate that.
You know, one of the things I want to say to you is, I've said this to you before in the time that we've known you. First of all, from a personal point of view, Michelle has been there personally. When my brother died 2 years ago, she was there. She was on the phone with me. She was total support. I got support ongoing, pictures of her little grandchild that was just born to make me smile, all kinds of really great things that you did to support me. And, you know, Michelle was one of the first ones that we began to work with, sending people to treatment.
Yes.
And her, you know, that's how we really got to know you when we were program directors of a treatment center, and you were sending people because you thought that was so important. And so we have followed you, we'd work with you, and you certainly have my respect. The other piece about that is, as you know, what we always say is that you know, if it wasn't for bail agents and agencies and the people that we've met, and you were the first one we met, our communities wouldn't be as safe.
That's true.
And we believe that. We say that when we're training and teaching, that if it wasn't for bail agencies, and that's who we trained first and continue, that our communities would not be safe and for people to learn. So that's why we're bringing these, podcasts to people. So please tell us all about you.
Well, I'm a kid from Brooklyn, New York. I'm born and raised, and you know, like Scott said, what I do, I say, and what I say, I do. But I think that's very inherently Brooklyn. I started out in bail about 3 decades ago, and I am also the founder and CEO at Empire Bail Bonds. I started lobbying against bail reform up in Albany back in 2012, when most people never really heard about bail reform or certainly didn't know what it was. I've been an integral part of that lobbying team for many years, and I always will be here in New York. And then about a little over a year ago, I noticed that there was a gaping hole in our industry in terms of a place for agents, bail agents, and fugitive recovery agents to come together under an umbrella and have an association that they could call home. And that would support them, because a lot of other organizations support bail agents or surety companies, but they don't support our valiant fugitive recovery agents. And what they do is just such a dangerous, hard job. And there's really like no one advocating for them on a national level and the importance that they have in the realm of our criminal justice system. So I thought, well, how could you have a national bail association and not include them? It's almost like discriminatory. So I started the National Association of Bail Agents, and I essentially, at the beginning, Karyn, Scott, I started off as a Facebook group, a private one, and I went to bed, and the next morning there were 87 people. And then I woke up, and the next morning there were 212 people.
I remember.
And I'm like, wait a minute. I said, I think I better incorporate, buy a domain, da-da-da. So I did all of that. And now here we are. We're a national organization. We have a federal lobbying team in Washington, D.C. And we're just trying to crank it out, but in a grassroots way, very grassroots.
I think it's incredible, Michelle. And of course, first of all, the idea itself of getting everybody together so that you have one united voice is going to be very important coming forward. But I think also it speaks volumes about you is that people will follow you because they believe in you and trust you. And so that's, I know you're not doing this to swell your head. And this isn't about your ego. This is about the bail industry. But I want to ask you a question, if you don't mind, Michelle, because some people watching this are like, bail reform. It sounds very mild. It sounds like, okay, bail, we're just going to change it up a little bit. We're going to reform it a little bit.
Right.
How can you explain that for people who don't understand bail? What exactly are you facing here?
Well, I mean, I kind of always usually answer this question in a very simple way so that everybody understands it.
Good.
If I said to you that jewelry was bad, and we needed jewelry reform, anything with the word, when you attach the word reform, inherently means that the subject matter is bad. So
Right.
They came up with bail reform. There really wasn't too much wrong with the bail system in America. To be honest with you, if they wanted, the menu of it indicates that they are doing this for the downtrodden, doing this for the indigent. But certainly the rollout of how bail reform is a totally different animal. It has nothing to do with the indigent. Really what it is a very, very extremely well-funded paid political agenda. It defies political ideology because, for example, in the state of New Jersey, Governor Christie, who claims to be a Republican, he did that in the state of New Jersey back in 2017. And really, it's just much more of this political movement. And what bail reform does is essentially it makes judges, it usurps the judicial branch, and it puts policies in place whereby a judge has no choice but to release that particular offender on the least restrictive condition. And much of these bail reform programs, and this is unbeknownst to people that are law abiding and that pay taxes and live in their homes, are funded by our tax dollar.
Wow. So,
right.
So we're not talking about, again, just, I don't want to beat this to death, but I want to make sure people understand. Again, it sounds so easy. Reform. Okay, change. No big deal. But we're talking about like really the elimination of a lot of bail jobs, the elimination of something that has been with us for I mean, many, many years. Bail industry goes way back to ancient times. I mean, it's one of the older professions, doing that. So if you have lobbyists and you're working on this, I don't want people to think that it's a bunch of bail agents saying we're not going to change a thing. If you have to compromise and make changes that are good for everybody, you guys are willing to do that, but you need a seat at the table to do that, don't you?
Yes. I mean, of course we need a seat at the table, right? So that's the reason why we, have a federal lobbying team, is to, make sure that we at least try to get a seat at the table. And the one thing that I tell bail agents all the time nationally is I might not always be successful. Like, I appreciate the fact that you trust me and that you're following us and that you are coming on to be a member of NABA, but I might not always be successful. We might not always be successful as a board. But the one thing that I can tell you is that we will not stop trying. So I always say I'm a trier. And that's really what I am. I'm a professional trier.
I like that.
That is absolutely true.
I wanted to be one of those in a restaurant, a professional trier. I'll try all the food for you. They wouldn't hire me.
Right. That's so funny.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you think that that the bail, because of this, do you think the bail industry is taking a black eye as far as public perception and everything else? Not to mention the fact that in every industry, including our industry, like the addiction industry, you get a couple of bad players. That's all they talk about. You know, you've had bad players in the bail industry. I'm sure NABA is doing something about that as well. You guys are watching and kind of policing yourselves as well. But what do you think's happening publicly in your perception?
Well, first of all, the legislature and the Catholic Church also has some bad apples. So
Yes.
I'll start with that. So every large industry or entity will usually have some bad apples from time to time. We certainly don't want to be defined by them.
Right.
Bail agents throughout the United States are mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, God-fearing. They are veterans. They are some of the most red, white, and blue Americans that you will ever meet in your lifetime. They are the fabric of America. They leave the Mother's Day table, the Christmas Eve table, New Year's Eve to get out the accused. And they do a valiant job and an important job in the success of every criminal justice system throughout the United States of America. Has the bail industry taken a black eye? Absolutely. I'll give you an example. When I met with the head of the ACLU for lunch in New Jersey, I said to him, listen, whoever your PR firm is, you need to be paying them an extra $50,000 a month. They are doing an amazing job at giving us 2 black eyes. And basically, that's what it is, right? So if we, as bail agents, and they make us out to be gazillionaires, if we had the money to hire multi-million-dollar PR firms throughout the land, we could make them look bad too. But we're a little bit too busy working.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that I want to say is that when Scott and I first met you, we didn't understand bail. You know, we, like a lot of people do not. And one of the things that I've always thought about is perception of the bail industry is wrong. So I got to meet you. I've got to meet many other bail agents, former FBI agents. We just talked to somebody the other day, actually, we're talking about you and thanking you for NABA. So we've talked to a lot of amazing human beings that go out of their way to help other human beings. This is not tracking down somebody who hasn't broken the law. These are people that have broken the law, and many times, several times, and done some things that are horrendous. And yet you guys treat people respectfully from everything I've ever seen. You try to help people. You know, I watch the posts and it's all about, look what happened, but you know what? Then I watch, you go take care of people. I know that you go take care of families, you help families, you feed them, you do all kinds of things, and the public does not know that. And I think that's important for the public to know.
Yeah, I'm very proud of bail agents and fugitive recovery agents throughout the United States. I'm kind of like a proud peacock mom all the time because I just am, because, you know, they bring diapers, they bring formula, you know, they're arresting because of failure to appear, right? And we have to, by virtue of court order, we're duty bound to bring back someone that warrants and does not adhere to the order of the court. And not only does that help the prosecutor not have to sentence that person in absentia, but it also gives the victim his or her day in court, which is so important. And I'm a domestic violence survivor, so that means a lot to me. It means a lot to bail agents. A lot of bail agents are crime victim survivors, and that's kind of how a lot of us parlayed, you know, into the industry, believe it or not. So it's very important. You know, what I always say about bail is a mythical 4-letter word. And it's just the kind of thing that people don't know about until they really kind of have to know about it, right? But what people need to know is, I think this, and this defies political ideology, bail agents matter. Bail agents do an amazing job throughout the land. We are being vilified because the government wants to take over our jobs, because the government thinks that they can do it much, much better than private industry. And I don't know, if you think about any facet of any, subject, does the government do it better? Not so much.
No, not so much.
Absolutely.
That's why we have roving bands in neighborhoods these days that we saw when this first started to happen. People were getting right back out of jail. And we live in a neighborhood that we never had to worry about. And now the parks down the street are filled with people. And that just didn't happen before. And I believe that it's because knowing what you guys do, you do keep communities safer. And without you, I think it's going to be horrific.
Well, Michelle, you mentioned something about the people, the bail agents themselves, the people who work in the bail bond and even the bounty hunter industry and all those. We found a great majority of them, correct me if I'm wrong, are former law enforcement or former military.
Right.
That's
So these
correct.
are people that one day we're thanking them for their service, and the next day we're saying we don't want your service. And that's a very strange combination there. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of us do have a lot of, prior experience, whether it's in law enforcement or serving the United States of America in the military. That's true.
And one last time, I want to make this very, very clear. You're not against improving. And I know that. You're saying that sometimes, I mean, they're using the indigent population as kind of like their touchstone for change,
Right.
saying, well, they're not, but they're not sitting there and talking with you guys about, well, how can we better serve them? They're just trying to eliminate you and do things different. That's why that seat at the table is so important, because if there is, listen, we could all improve. Bail is much different than it was 100 years ago. And 100 years from now, it's going to be much different.
Just like treatment.
And if there's a way to find a way to help some people, because there are some people that need something that they're not getting, but you're willing to sit down and do that. I don't want this being portrayed like you're just saying, we want to just stay the same way we are. You're not saying that.
No.
Right?
Not at all. So, what the inherent problem with bail reform pertaining to the mentally ill and the addicted population is so important to bring up. And, bail reform does not address those particular populations. So, for example, when you have someone who's serving 6 months or a year in incarceration and they need SSRIs so they don't hear the voices, let's say they suffer from schizophrenia, and they get an antipsychotic at 7 a.m. and then again at 8 p.m., right? They are being serviced and they are being taken care of and they are being given their medication that they medically need. Once you release them into the general public and they're no longer medicated, not only do they not have the ability to understand the fundamental differences between right and wrong, they are going to be homeless. They really have nowhere to go. And that's what you're seeing throughout the United States of America. And then if you move over to the addicted population transcends community, transcends color, transcends, how much money one might make per annum, right?
Yep.
So you have the addicted population. When they commit crime and they're in a state of addiction and they cannot differentiate between right and wrong because they need to sell that whatever they're stealing, the iPad, so that they can get their next fix. That's really, they're just honed in on that. And when they're not incarcerated and they don't go from incarceration to a place of servicing where that they can, get addiction services like you guys provide, and they're blanket released back to the streets, what they're going to do is they're going to continue to commit crime. They're going to continue to burglarize. When they burglarize and they go into the wrong home, either they're going to be killed or they're going to commit some sort of heinous crime in a bad state of mind, maybe do something that they would never have done if they weren't in an addicted state. So the states throughout the United States of America, instead of concentrating on those issues, would rather use bail reform as a blanket release program. And it almost is promoting genocide.
Wow. I mean, that's a
Yep.
strong statement, but you're absolutely right. And that's what we believe as well, Michelle. And that's kind of what we've based our relationship started with, was trying to find a way. Listen, there's always going to be recidivism. It's always going to happen. But when there's absolutely no treatment for the causal problem that is causing these things, and then it's just crazy. It's insane. You're right. I mean, it's like taking your car to a mechanic and leaving it overnight, but nobody fixes it, and then you drive away and it's still broken. We're talking about identifying and helping people who can change and who deserve the help. And
They're sick.
and you've made that an important part of bail.
That costs money.
Yeah.
And the state of New York, for example, they don't want to invest their money in treating the addicted. They'd rather put up little telephone booths so they could go in there and shoot heroin.
Yes.
You understand? That's their answer to addiction. Is let them shoot, let them die. Maybe 2/3 of them will die. We won't have to incarcerate them. We won't have to deal with them. They'll kill each other. At the end of the day,
that's happening in several states now, unfortunately. That's happening in several states instead of, and I want to say that you and other bail agents that we met through you have brought people to treatment. You actually bring them. You actually go out of your way, and it's on your dime. You bring people to treatment and help them. And people don't know that. I mean, it's like you're not taking advantage of people. You really are far more support than people would ever know.
I appreciate you saying that, Karyn. And it's true. We are sober transport partners. We are willing to do whatever it takes. And that's why bail, private bail, secured bail is so important, because we work directly with family. Mm-hmm. And when you're dealing with mom, dad, auntie, and uncle, right, they want that young boy or that young girl to be well. They don't want them to be addicted anymore, and they're desperate for help. The government is generally open from 8:45 to 4:45, right?
Yeah.
Bail agents are open 24/7, 365. So
it's all right. There we are.
Okay. Oh, there we are. We will always have the time and the wherewithal and transport someone into the safe arms of treatment so that they have a fighting chance. We have a lot of problems as it pertains to medically insured people that are addicted, and that's a problem throughout America. And I just wish they would take their billions of dollars that they're investing in bail reform and invest it in mentally ill people and addicted people. We would have a lot less recidivism, and we would have a lot more public safety.
And one of the things I want to say about that is that when we put this, intervention course together, the first people that wanted to be trained and stepped up and asked us for this course were you, the bail agents. You wanted to know more. And so many of you stepped up and have taken this course. We have more bail agents that have taken this course than anybody else, because you guys care. You want to know how to do what you do, and it adds to what you do. And it's amazing when we say to people, do you know how many bail agents have been trained and they want to be interventions along with what you're doing? More than a lot of people in treatment. So that is amazing.
And I have to call bullshit on some of the stuff about the government, because they're talking about they don't want to spend the money, they don't want to do this. Right. It's already been proven time and time again. The cost of incarceration is more than the cost of treatment, whether it's for mental health or for addiction. Not to mention the long-term savings of not having them return to court and recommit crimes and do all of that. A small investment now, which again is smaller than the investment of incarceration. A small investment now pays huge dividends in the end. Now, Michelle, I know you've worked with people directly. You've had people do these things where you've bonded them and they've come out and they've gone into treatment. And have you had some good results? And can you share like maybe a story that people would really understand?
Well, I'm not going to name her. But,
no, we can't name names, obviously. Yes,
I won't name her, but every once in a blue, I get very affected by 1 or 2 or 5 or 18 offenders, right? So there was this one young girl, and her mother, God bless her, very Slavic woman, just kept coming to me and saying, help my daughter, help my daughter, help my daughter. So she got arrested on a lot of different crimes. The bail was very, very high. We took her into treatment with you guys. She did pretty well. She came back out and did pretty well. And then she kind of fell off after a while. And she went back and she had to do her time. And she had to do a lot of time. And while she was incarcerated, I was her person on her file. So she could call me, I could call them, I could see how she was doing. Well, now she's out. We got her into this amazing program in New York. She had to shave her head. She had to go through a lot to graduate that program. And now she's a functional member of society. She's doing great. I just had lunch with her mom and her very recently. And, you know, she's my heart. And people like her are my heart. I'm a mother of 4 children. Thank God none of them are addicted to narcotics. But the parents, and I often get asked this, what do you see in your industry that kind of still shocks you or still affects you? And for me, it's mom and dad. It's always mom and dad. The tears and the heart-wrenching cries of a parent that used to have this child and now have this child because of heroin. It just I never get used to it. It's harrowing.
Wow.
I want to say that I'm sure Scott knows.
We know who you're talking about.
And I cannot tell you, I have goosebumps. And I am so happy. I have been in touch with the mom off and on through the years as well. I am so happy to hear this news.
Please extend our love to both of them.
All of them. Yes,
Okay.
I will, yes.
That's
and
important.
Thank you for supporting all of that. You see, that's what people don't know. They don't know that it's you, the people doing all this kind of support years later. Treatment centers don't do that. Therapists don't do that. But you guys do that.
Well, and that's the issue with learning everything everybody knows about bail and bond and everything else. They've learned from TV and movies. And while it's exciting,
it's not the truth.
You're not out running down crooks down the street and jumping over cars and beating them up in the middle of you're not doing that. That's not the truth of it. You are actually more like social workers in a lot of ways, aren't you?
Yep.
We are, definitely, but make no mistake about it. If you fail to appear,
oh yes,
we will come for you in the middle of the night, and we will bring you back to the judge. We will bring you back to the jail. The one thing that's missing all the time from the bail reform conversation, and I often will disrupt a reformer, which they don't like, and I will ask them, what about the victims? What if you're saying it's okay to shoplift because it's only a sweater? But what if you're not Walmart? What if you're Joe's Sweater Shop in Washington, North Carolina, and you really can only afford to stock 5 sweaters? And the guy came in and stole 3. Are you going to be able to make payroll? Are you going to be able to feed your family? Are you going to have to go out of business? Why doesn't that matter? So there are laws in place throughout the United States of America because they're laws, right? They shouldn't be broken. And if they're broken, that means you're a lawbreaker, right? Regardless of the title of the crime. Either you're a lawbreaker or you're not, right? So people seem to forget in today's police reform age that all people are arrested on probable cause. I don't walk up and down the street every single day. There's cops all over my neighborhood, but I never get arrested. Never does one of them come up to me and go, you and that red hair, you're under arrest. I don't do
We don't get arrested anymore either, do we? After being sober all these years.
Yeah, it's just, people tend to forget because it's such a popular talking point.
Yeah.
About, and then the racial divide. It's such a bunch of malarkey, as someone we know would say. So I just don't prescribe to it. I believe that bail agents are the fabric of the success of the criminal justice system. I believe that we do protect public safety by removing the warranted from your communities. If someone fails to appear and they have no respect for the court, and they were originally arraigned on sexual charges with a child, and they're hiding in your community, do you think that they're not going to seek out that behavior again? The likelihood is that they will. But when they're out and they're on a bond and they warrant, they fail to appear, we're going to come for that person and we're going to lock them up. The thing that's happening, Scott and Karyn, is that once we return them, because of bail reform policies, this happens in every state, they're getting released immediately. Once we bring them back, then they're automatically, boom, they're getting released.
Wow.
It's crazy.
It is crazy.
So I guess the question is who's looking out for our communities if this big political fight, and, you know, I'm not sure who they want to benefit, you know, but we know the communities will not benefit. As a matter of fact, there's a few places that have adopted the bail reform idea, and many of them are rethinking it right now, are they not?
Yes. Well, Alaska did a full repeal of bail reform. New Hampshire passed it. He's very upset that he did that. He's seeking full repeal, the governor there. New York State is the only state in a blue trifecta of government that had to roll back bail reform 3 months subsequent to its rollout. So bail reform is just a fallacy. It has a catchy name.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that people now know about it, but they didn't really know about it before. And in answer to your question, there's 2 ways to make sure that this doesn't happen in your community. One of them is something simple called a citizen's right to know bill. And what that means is that if your legislators are going to make us all wear orange shirts on Thursdays, that we should get to know about that through a citizen's right to know. It should be published, and we should get to know exactly what that means. The other way is the ballot box. So when you go to vote, and I encourage everyone to vote, don't vote political line, because Republicans can be purchased and certainly Democrats can be purchased, right?
Right.
So we don't encourage anyone to vote political line. We encourage you, NABA encourages you to find out what is that policymaker's position on criminal justice reform. Is that person for parole reform? Is that person for bail reform? Is that person for police reform? If that policymaker is for those items, vote for the other guy. Find out what his or her position is, but ask the question. It could be the clown party. It doesn't matter the political line. It just matters what their position is. And that's what you must ask. People must ask that question.
Absolutely. That's good advice. And I think over the last several years, you know, there's been a lot of drama in Washington and all over, and people have become more politically aware than they were before. That's probably the best thing to come out of all the chaos, was that people are more politically aware. But use that voice, and today information is everywhere, right, Michelle? You don't have to say, I don't know. You could find out what their position is. What is their voting record? What have they done in the past? And there's no excuse not to know those things now. So please pay attention. If this is something that you feel passionate about, then get involved. And your vote is the most important thing you can use. Yep. But in the meantime, again, we support bail, we support NABA, we support our friends and the people who are concerned about just doing what's right for the victim, for the families, for the community, and yes, even for the convicted. We want to do what's right across the board, and we can't always be right all the time. And sometimes there's things that need improvement. But that's called sitting down at a table and looking at those things and not making these blanket reforms that don't actually fix the problems. So once again, being very clear on this, you guys as NABA are willing to sit and talk. And if there's a problem, let's work on it together. But you're not willing to accept these blanket solutions, right?
Absolutely not. The one thing about me is that I always will stand on top of the mountain, and I'm always usually the loudest screamer. And
Really?
Yeah.
We didn't know that about you.
Yeah. And I plan for that to continue for a certain book of time. But I want to make the public aware that just because something comes beautifully wrapped and in a Tiffany box, it doesn't mean that when you open it, it's going to be what you expect. So that really is the nature of politics. And politics, and this was unbeknownst to me when I first started politicking and lobbying. I thought that politicians did things on virtue. I thought that they chose pathways because of right and wrong. I had absolutely no inclination that that is not even on the menu.
Right.
And it's not on the menu for the vast majority of politicians. Usually the ones that are first getting started in their careers have that, and they're like, oh, I want to be this person and I want to be that person. But like when they voted through bail reform in the state of New York, we had a bunch of first-time senators in the Democratic Party that were not going to vote yes on bail reform. They got one call from Governor Cuomo, and that all changed. So, the fact of the matter is we have to be keenly aware. Are you for abortion? Are you for the separation between church and state? Are you for orange shirts on Thursday? Like, what is your story? Who are you? Before you vote for somebody because your neighbor is voting for them or because they have a fancy sign, find out who they are.
Correct.
Absolutely. Now, first of all, nobody should ever wear orange unless you're attending a college basketball game. All right.
That's you.
I'm just saying, I've never seen it look good. It doesn't happen. But we've covered a lot, and I think we're going to have to revisit this
We're going to have to come
with
back
you again, Michelle, to talk about more. And please, if there are people out there, again, we're lucky to be connected with you and to have a direct pipeline to what's going on. But there might be some people out there say, how can I help? Is there a way they can reach out to you? Is there a way that they can get involved and support? Because it takes money and effort and time and support to do all the things you're trying to do. So how can people get involved and help you out?
Well, you can become a friend of bail, and you can join our association as such by visiting National Association of Bail Agents.com. It's a $50 fee to become a member. And we encourage everyone to come and join us on this grassroots journey. And if anybody has any ideas or would like to speak with me further, you can reach me there, and I'm happy to speak with anybody about bail anytime.
I want to say we're honored to be part of NABA.
Yes.
We have been from the beginning. And
we're honored to have you.
Yes, and thank you.
And this money you collect, this is used for things like trying to get the seat at the table, trying to raise awareness and do all of that. Nobody's just putting it in their pocket. This is about a working capital to get things done. Am I right?
Yeah, no, we are all a series of industry volunteers. So all the money that we get either goes to government relations or goes to grassroots efforts for bondsmen on the ground. For example, we did a No on Prop 25 lawn sign campaign. And we bought a bunch of lawn signs, and bail agents were able to come and pick those up and, strategically put them out through the state. And it's really grassroots stuff like that, flyers, handouts, things like that. We're not a wealthy organization by any stretch of the imagination. We're kind of like a month-to-month sort of thing, but we have a lot of heart.
Well, the grassroots are always where the best ideas come from, and it's where the strongest and the most devoted people operate from. Right. So we're really, really happy to be a part of this with you, Michelle. It's incredible. Karyn, you got anything you want to wrap up with?
No, I'm happy to see you. Happy to, we've been talking about doing this for a while, and now we are set up. We can do this, and we'd like to do it again, and have different topics so that people know what's going on, what bail really is, and what all of you are trying to do, which is amazing. Bottom line is, let's face it, folks, these people are keeping our communities safe. And I did not know that until I met Michelle and I met a lot of other people that she introduced Scott and I to. But our communities are safer because of bail.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate that. God bless everybody.
God bless. You take care.
And I want to thank Michelle Esquenazi for being a part of our show today. Again, she is the president and founder of NABA, National Association of Bail Agents. And if you want to get involved or learn more about it, if you still don't understand what's going on, please go to National Association of Bail Agents so you can reach anybody there. You can certainly reach out to Michelle through the website. Answer those questions. Google's a great tool. Google it and find out exactly what's going on so that you can not just get involved for political purpose or because of ideology, get involved because what's good for your community, your family, your neighbors, your friends, and get involved. Putting your head in the sand and just letting the government do what they want to do because they get a whim is not going to help us. We need to make sure we protect our rights and our security and our safety. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. You've been watching Crime and Addiction podcast, sponsored by Addiction Training Center. This is hosted on our Addiction Training Network on YouTube. So please, if you like this show, please subscribe to our channel and click the button for notifications so you can catch our next show. Karyn, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Scott Jones. Thank you, Michelle.
Bye-bye, Michelle.
Bye, Michelle.